Hey, Brett Moravitz here. Welcome back to my channel. Well, it's been 3 years since I've completed my Octagon 6x6 Octagon hunting blind here. And it's actually on a different property than what I first set it up on 3 years ago. I've since sold that property, and one of the conditions were that I keep my Octagon box blind and also my 6x8 deer hunting blind. So they've been moved. Last year I got kind of busy. I ended up buying this farm. If you follow my channel, you've seen some of the things I've done there. And I got busy last year moving a double wide onto the property that I'm now renting out. So I just never got around to putting this blind back up on posts. I just kind of set it on the edge of a hill looking down in a valley below. It was a good spot for gun hunting, but it just wasn't a great spot for bow hunting, which I wanted to do too. So after learning the farm a little bit more and how deer move, I decided to set it up here on posts in this spot. It's next to a couple of apple trees, which is good. And so I just felt comfortable knowing that it's in a good spot where I can use it for both gun hunting and also bow hunting. And now, since it's been 3 years, I thought I'd do a review of the good things and the bad things about this blind. There's a couple things that I wish I'd have done a little bit differently, but overall, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So let's start with the exterior. A couple things I didn't do. I didn't use treated 2x6s for the base, and I didn't use treated plywood for the sides. Do I regret that? No, not really. You know, if you do use treated material, it is going to last longer because, well, it's treated. But here I ended up using, you know, the metal to wrap those corners. And so far there's no weathering going on under there on those 2x6s that show like it's going to be a problem. You know, because we had them wrapped in metal and then we've got them capped with that plywood. I did notice that plywood faded. It was painted black. The paint kind of faded on there. So I gave this another coat of stain before I elevated it just a week ago. I got to tell you, I used this product called Durastain. It's a solid color stain by Woolman. I'll throw a picture of the color that I think is woodland brown or something like that. That stuff is awesome. In 3 years of being exposed to the weather, it was still really, really good. I gave it another coat because it was at ground level here. I could reach it really, really easy before I put it up. So I put another coat, and I still had a half a gallon of that stain from before. From 3 years ago for this blind, so I used it and put another coat on the blind. Again, didn't really need it, but thought, well, why not? You know, I've got it, it's on the ground, so I did it. And while I'm on the topic of exterior stain, the 6x8 box blind that I built, I used a Thompson's Water Seal semi-transparent stain. Total garbage. In 2 years, I had to restain, or actually repainted the whole thing. Solid color stained the whole thing. That Thompson Water Seal, I am not a fan. I don't recommend that product. Sorry, Thompson's, but your product proved to be garbage as far as I'm concerned. This Woolman Durastain is a product by Rust-Oleum. I'm not a fan of Rust-Oleum spray paint, but this stuff was really good solid color stain. Highly recommend it. A subscriber, or at least a viewer, had questioned why I didn't put corner trim on where the plywood seams come together. Or why another person asked why I don't bevel that. Well, I tried that with the first Octagon that I built. It's a hassle. It's so much easier just to fill those corners in with some cheap caulking, and it held up very, very well. So it's just not necessary to take that extra step. You can do it if you want, but caulking up those corners caused no problems here. It worked really well. And again, this was untreated plywood, which is holding up really well if you've got the right kind of exterior stain on there. That stain was also a water base, which is pretty amazing how well it's held up. So I guess to summarize the exterior, would it have been easier to use treated plywood and treated 2x6 base? Yes. You probably wouldn't even have to stain it or paint it ever if you did that, because that stuff lasts forever. It doesn't, once you've got it, you know, screwed to your studs, it doesn't warp and all that. So it'd been a little easier, but for what it cost, the cost savings, I thought it was worth it. Do I have any regrets using untreated material? None. One of the things I will point out that I wish I would have done differently though, and that is, when I was in the instructional video, I had indicated to leave 6.5 inches from the stud to the bottom of this plywood. That was a bit of a mistake. I don't know how I figured 6.5 inches, but 6 1/4 inches would be better. And the reason that I say that is, and it wouldn't change a thing if you're thinking about building one and you want to mark that 6 1/4 versus 6 1/2. It won't cause any problems with anything else later. It really won't. But I wish I didn't have this 1/4 inch lip sticking out. You can see underneath below here. And the reason for that is when we use the pallet forks, when they go in, it's fine. But when they come back out and you've got weight on there, it likes to pull back, and it actually peeled some of the plywood on the side that we use the forks on, because that 1/4 inch lip was sticking down. If you're not going to use pallet forks to elevate it, doesn't matter. But I wished I would have set those studs at 6 1/4 from the bottom of that plywood, those plywood walls, instead of 6 1/2. So I would have eliminated that 1/4 inch lip. Second, in this video, I ended up not putting down caulking or construction adhesive on the tops of my floor joists. And I screwed it, but it still squeaked. And so then I put twice as many screws in there, and it squeaked some more. I mean, I just couldn't get rid of the squeak. So my second biggest regret would be not putting down that construction adhesive before I put the plywood on there. You got to do something to eliminate those squeaks. As you can see, I took the screws out, and then I slipped some landscape fabric up in there in the spots where it was actually really bad. It seemed like it was worse where I seamed the plywood floor in those 2 spots. So that's where I ended up lifting it up or unscrewing it, putting a wedge in there, getting some landscape fabric in there. I could have probably squeezed some construction adhesive in there too, but I just hate those squeaks. and that was another huge regret. One of those things that if you're going to build one of these, and you don't like squeaks, I said it before in my other videos, just buy a tube of caulking or a construction adhesive and save yourself the hassle. Some people ask, how far are these posts into the ground? They're about 3 feet. As far as I can get down with a post hole digger, those hand ones that it just takes a lot of work. So they're down there, and then I actually pour like a gallon or so of just Saccrete in the bottom of the hole, tamp it down, and I'm assuming that it kind of sets up. It works as a great base for these posts either way. I'm assuming it kind of sets up and turns into concrete, so you've got a good base at the bottom of your pole. I don't like putting concrete around the posts, filling up that hole. I don't think that's good for treated wood. And then I've got this like I don't know, 3/16 inch cable, a couple of eye bolts in there. And I ran straight down. These are fence posts. They've got the old kind. They've got these wavy ridges on the edge there. I pounded those down about 4 feet. And I don't know if you've ever tried to pull one of those old fence posts out of the ground before, but it's dang near impossible. So I did one of those on each side, and I'm just hoping that that's going to be enough to hold it. I mean, if we get a storm that knocks that down, we've got other bad issues going on. As far as the roof goes, that's held up really well. When I had it on the ground, I did put another coat of black paint around my fascia board. If you've got the 3.5 inch fascia metal, highly recommend just wrapping that so you never have to worry about it. But those were untreated 2x4s with 1 coat of paint on them. I put another coat on there. I think they're going to last just as long as everything else, really, because we've got a little bit of overhang from the metal roof, so they really rarely get wet. I'm really happy with my double ladder stand access platform here. I ended up welding these were the old seat brackets. I welded them to the side, so I've got a handrail while I'm climbing up. Had these extra plywood closures on there. Those are good. It helps keep that door from warping, the rest of the season all summer long. This one's a little sticky because I just painted it. And going inside, I'm real happy with the window heights. I can shoot a compound bow out of these windows. Unless a deer is like right underneath me, I can't, but corner windows are fine. Really no disappointment with these windows either. They're not completely airtight, but that's fine. I did notice on a driving rain when I was sitting here, or came in just afterwards to just look things over, I did get a little bit of dripping in one window from a driving rain, but that happens. I'm very happy with the PVC closers on these windows. They just operate so nice and easy. The windows still operate fine. The rubber doorstop stuff works about as good as you can get for what you pay for it. I did notice that it's fading on the sunny side. It was kind of turning white. It's dark plastic. What do you expect? I guess if it lasts 10 years, it's pretty easy to change out if you have to do that. but I don't think I'm going to have to do that for quite a while. So otherwise, on the inside, I don't think I would really change anything. I've been using this landscape fabric for curtains. It works really great. I just punch a couple holes in there and, you know, put those screws on there. That stuff is about the best curtain that I think you could get, because it's just flat black and it's soft and it makes no noise. I did have a little trouble with ants. Those little black ants got in here, and they were, you know, they can find their way in little nooks and crannies anywhere. And I tried that clear ant gel. That didn't do anything. I tried those little plastic ant traps. That didn't do anything. And so I ended up using, it was an ant powder or ant dust, and that killed them. That killed them real well. I mean, they just, that was it. That's the ticket. If you have ants, don't bother with the other. Oh, I even tried the granules outside first for a week or so before that. Those little granules that you sprinkle on the ground, that didn't do anything either. The only thing that really took care of those ants was that dust. I am happy that I didn't nail down or staple down my carpet, because once I got done dusting out the ants, I just wanted to get all that dust out of here. So I just pulled the carpet out and shook it out, and now it's pretty nice and clean again. Just don't have that ant dust to worry about. The shed door closer has been working out real well. It's just simple operation. It's lockable. I'm really happy with how that turned out. That just turned out to be a really great way, you know, for this homemade door. Just a great closer. I had 4 vents up in the corners. Happy with those. It doesn't smell moldy. It doesn't feel moldy in here, or feel like, you know, like there's moisture in the air, except for when I'm running the buddy heater. And I got to wipe the windows down every once in a while, but I usually just open a window on the back side. And after the blind warms up inside, that condensation usually gets better. And also, if you've watched one of the videos I had, I bought some of these small bottles on Amazon, and then I put the Hunter's shampoo, Hunter's soap in there. It's scent free, and I use that in a microfiber cloth. I keep that in each blind, and that works really well for helping with fog on your windows. This is an office chair with fold-up arms that I really like. Sometimes when I'm sitting in here with my compound bow, I don't like armrests. But when I'm gun hunting, it's really nice to have them. We're sitting here for long hours. So I kind of recommend that chair. That's a really nice chair. I got it on Amazon. It was like $60 or $70, but those fold-up armrests they're kind of nice for all-purpose hunting. And since I'm up here, I'll give you a panoramic view. That's an apple tree right there. It's got quite a few apples on it actually this year. I got a really killer view of the valley down below here. That's an old silo. There used to be a farm down there, but there's not anymore. But I can see when I'm rifle hunting, it's a good 250 yards probably to the wood line there. It's kind of a swamp down there with a ridge in the back. There are some apple trees right down below me here too, and when the leaves fall off this fall, I'll be able to see down to the bottom quite a bit better. I got a 2-acre cornfield food plot back there. My green 6x8's overlooking that one, which is now gray. There's an apple tree just over the hill right there. There's an apple tree right there, and I planted 2 crab apples right here that hopefully in a few years will produce. And I've got a vine hanging right there with about 20 yards away, maybe 18 yards away. And then I dug in, you can't really see it, but I dug in a water hole about 18 or 20 yards right there. So, and then behind me, there's a field that's got a lot of clover in it. It's butterfly habitat right now, or it was a conservation plan that I put it into. And it happens to be clover this year. It'll be prairie grass and stuff next year, but they're working their way up the bottom here, and they're going out into that clover. So between the apple trees and that clover nearby, I'm hoping it gives me a chance to shoot something out of it, a nice buck out of it this fall. I didn't talk about the homemade door on the outside here, but that's held up really well. And I'm glad that I put those extra closers on there, because I think it probably would warp, especially if it's facing the south or the west, where you get hot sun kind of baking it all day long. But for being a homemade door, it's held up really well. There was one thing with the door actually that I almost forgot to mention, and that is that foam, that 1/4-inch foam strip or whatever that was that I used to seal the door up. It's just not of good quality. It just doesn't stay on there. It doesn't stick where it should on the sticky side, and then the non-sticky side sticks to the wall of the blind. So it kind of made a mess. Half of it's tore off. I tried nailing some of that back on there. There must be a better type of seal that you could use on there that's made of rubber or maybe a piece of rope or a chunk of a strip of carpet, that foam is just not the right product. It just wasn't the right quality to use for that. I think the my intentions were good to make a nice seal, but it was just the wrong kind of foam. It just didn't hold up. So would recommend using something different than that, or nothing at all. I mean, it doesn't need to be completely airtight, so maybe your call on that. So with that, I'll conclude this 3-year review of my 6x6 Octagon deer hunting blind. So if you're thinking of building your own, I hope you found some useful tips out of this, and 3 things that you could do to make yours a little bit better than this one. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.